problem caused by the emergence from the pandemic. But,
let's provide
it's my time, Mr.
Can
Chair.
we provide some context to that?
No, well, on
Has
your
inflation
time,
reduced?
Let's go to your time, and we'll have a great conversation. But I think it's my time, and I would like to use my time to provide a little bit of context for this conversation we're having. There's been references to...
Hold on. Are you doing your 5 minutes now?
I am. Is that all right?
You have to recognize.
I have to recognize you in order to do that. So
Let's do this by the book, by all means.
Yeah. I recognize a gentleman from California for 5 minutes.
All right. Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I love regular order. So for my 5 minutes, I would like to bring back a little bit of context for this discussion we've been having, references to the Manchin-Barrasso bill in the Senate, a quote-unquote permitting bill that actually slashes judicial review, gives handouts to the oil and gas industry, creates new authorities for mining companies to dump toxic waste on federal lands, forces mandatory offshore oil and gas leases, and requires the Department of Energy to mandates the approval of LNG export infrastructure, but it does contain a few good provisions for transmission and clean energy development. But there's a lot of handouts to the fossil fuel industry. That mandatory approval of LNG infrastructure comes in spite of everything we know about liquefied natural gas when you actually do the accounting of the methane losses from the wellhead all the way to liquefaction and transportation and the burning at the back end. It is worse than coal. And just a few moments ago, there was great alarm that China continues to build coal plants. Well, we're doing something that's even worse under the Manchin-Barrasso bill. And let me be clear, I don't support that bill. It sacrifices our most vulnerable communities in the name of marginal progress on clean energy. It takes us backward on decarbonization. But here in our chamber, Team Extreme, there's another one for the bingo card, doesn't think it's draconian enough. And so Chairman Westerman has brought forward a bill that takes the worst parts of the Senate bill and then goes even further when it comes to communities who are affected by these projects and even more handouts for polluters. So look, I know there are people right now who think the waning days of this dumpster fire of a Congress is a good time to cut a deal on permitting. But I hope when you see Chair Westerman's bill and understand it to be a negotiating position, a line in the sand, this is not a good time to be cutting a bill with Team Extreme on something, you have to use air quotes, but we'll call it permitting reform. This is a ransom note that we're considering today, not serious legislation. It's the umpteenth regurgitation of H.R. 1, more of the same. It is the congressional equivalent of the Rocky Horror Picture Show cult movie, where we've all seen it so many times, everybody knows the words. And Mr. Graves' CRA invites us to do the time warp again, using the Rocky Horror Picture Show frame. Again, it would prevent the federal government from considering climate change or environmental justice in NEPA procedures ever again. It would take us a long way backward on those important policies. So the regulations that my Republican friends are trying to repeal do an important thing. They establish long-needed updates to how agencies incorporate climate change and environmental justice into environmental reviews. This is important for so many communities that have requested these reforms for years. And so I was proud to join 100 other members of Congress in a bicameral letter asking CEQ to incorporate these very protections. I would ask, Mr. Chairman, unanimous consent to enter that letter from October 13, 2023 to CEQ into the record. Thank you. Undoing these regulations, and worse, stopping the federal government from ever going back to considering these type of protections is an extreme and dangerous policy. So, Mr. Beard, what do the NEPA Phase 2 regulations that Mr. Graves' legislation seeks to repeal mean to your community?
What it means to my community, first and foremost, is that our voices aren't and can't be heard. The effects that are cumulative that will happen in our community won't be taken into consideration properly. And it also doesn't consider what happens to the climate. and other environmental justice issues. All of those are impactful to us. And if we don't consider them, then we are sacrificing those communities once again for profit and putting politics over people. And that simply is unacceptable.
Yeah. These regulations don't necessarily mean a project can't happen, but they require consideration of these impacts, these environmental justice impacts, and also the reality of climate change. Do you think that's asking too much as part of an environmental review process?
No, it's not asking too much. We need to consider those things because of the impact we already see. To not consider them is to be in absolute denial. It is here, it is happening now, right now, down in southeast Texas, southwest Louisiana with the storms. And we all know about the other storms and the fires. All of those are consequences of that.
Thank you, Mr. Beard. I yield back.
Thank you very much. The chair now recognizes Representative Lamalfa from California for 5